Hello and welcome back to another BL3 video. Today we'll be looking at the Bekah. This is a returning gun from Borderlands 2 and is personally one of my favorite Jacobs assault rifles from number 2. So I'm very happy they added it back into 3. This gun is, I'm gonna say, is definitely one of those more skill-based guns where you definitely gotta be hitting those crit shots. And the reason I say that is because, well, in my opinion, I say that is because the way the weapon works is when you shoot one projectile, that projectile will actually split into 3. Not quite the same as the Lyuda will, but it's more of a... Think about it this way. The projectile gets shot, right, then goes outwards, and it almost instantly starts to split from the moment it gets fired, as opposed to after a certain distance. So it's a little different in that sense, but it's another unique weapon that shoots 3 projectiles at once. So we're going to test it out on the grave ward here, right? And as you've seen, the mayhem mode modifiers aren't exactly working against the weapon, so that's good. They're not really buffing it either, so it's a good fair trial against the boss for it. The first thing you will notice though is, unless I'm hitting those crit spots, it's not doing a whole lot of damage, but right here, as you can see, it just starts melting away the HP of his. It's not as good as some weapons, I'll admit, but you know, for a returning weapon, it still holds its own, I find. It mainly excels against non-boss type enemies, which you'll see in the other part of the video when we go to try it out against regular enemies. But you still could and can use it against bosses if you so choose. Like I said, this is just my flak character, so he's more of a farming type, real tanky, you know, basically built specifically for farming. And I imagine this gun in other characters' hands would do a lot better. Especially if you could find an anointed version for it. It would really do good. But yeah, the main thing to this weapon is that the projectile splits into 3 after such a distance, which you might be able to see right here. And another great thing is about the weapon is it's a Jacobs, right? So every time you get a critical hit, you know, the bullet's gonna ricochet. So technically, if you can get those 3 bullets from the one projectile to hit the crit, right, you got 3 every time. And it doesn't need that built into the weapon, which is fantastic. Another thing I really enjoy about this weapon is that you don't have to reskin this weapon at all. It comes with a nice weapon skin, I find. It's very unique looking compared to a lot of them. The gun is very accurate. As you're going to see in the video here, it is a very accurate weapon. It, like I said, I find it's more of one of those skill-based guns where you really gotta, you know, be on par with your aiming. Because if you're not hitting those crits, well, you're not gonna get the most out of it, right? Because if you can get those 3 shots to hit a crit, then it's quite obvious, you know, you're gonna do some good damage. As you can see here, try and, you know, stay as calm as I can, like steady as I can while I'm hitting that crit spot. The recoil is something to keep note of, as you can see. I imagine if you had a really high Guardian rank, and I'm talking like stupidly high, like above 200, yeah, and if you put a lot of points into recoil reduction, that would definitely help with this weapon, big time. But overall, it's a very nice gun. Like it's really fun to use, I find. You can use it as, you know, kind of a close range weapon, hip fire, if you get used to, you know, how the projectiles work and everything, and the way the recoil works, how much it kicks is what I'm talking about. If you can get used to those things, it's a pretty fun gun to use against most of the smaller enemies. I haven't really tried it out against anointed enemies, you know, like, I don't see the point in trying to test all these guns against anointed because they're always going to be tougher, they're always going to be stronger, right? Like, they got abilities that can make them completely immune to damage, so, you know, is there really a point? Is there? You gotta ask yourself that question as if you're a content creator making these types of Borderlands 3 videos. See what we got here. Oh, that is actually pretty nice. Maybe we'll do that for the next video. So yeah, the Bekah. Very happy it's a returning weapon. And let's go test this out on some other types of enemies. Here we are at the Slaughter Star 3000. So this is not a bad place, I find, to test guns. You got a lot of different enemy types, shielded. Some of them are armored, you know, from time to time. But as you can see, hip firing or not, especially when you're actually doing good and like you got the skills to be aiming, like sniping people out, getting those crit spots all the time. Oh yeah, this gun just excels then. Especially against these normal type enemies opposed to mini bosses or bosses like, you know, Anointed specifically. I imagine it could do good against Anointed, right? You just have to be hitting those crits all the time, and you have to make sure, you know, you're used to the Anointed the way they are and they behave, right? Because they tend to, like I said, just want to be cheap arseholes and just shield themselves from all types of damage. But yeah, it does quick work as long as you get those crits. And, you know, keep in mind it is a Jacobs. Once again, it's going to ricochet every critical hit, you know, towards the nearest enemy. And also, as you're going to see, some of these enemies, you know, when they do get close, I'm kind of hip firing at them, and, you know, it's doing its fair share of damage even if I'm not hitting those crits. But here's a good example of how you can use it more like a sniper rifle, even though it's a assault rifle. That's another cool little thing I thought that was really nice about this weapon. It tends to be very, very efficient at long range. Even though the projectiles are splitting into 3, and I know I don't show a whole lot of like gameplay of that, but trust me, if you got one of these for yourself, or if you played number 2, like Borderlands 2, you'll know exactly how the gun works. But yeah, I would definitely recommend this gun for most people, especially if you like playing like as a sniper. You like shooting enemies from afar, you know, keeping cover. That type of gameplay, you know, especially if you're playing with a group of friends. Oh yeah, you're probably gonna do a lot of damage, because right, especially if your friends are willing to go up front, you know, kind of play decoy or distraction, whatever you want to call it, you know, and they got the aggro of the enemy. They'll give you more opportunities to sit back and, you know, kind of like I'm doing here, just trying to find those perfect little shots, you know, the best I can. And even at that range, you know, like, yeah, the scope isn't exactly built for sniping, but there's no saying the gun isn't, right? Like, it's obviously capable of hitting enemies at, you know, fire ranges. And with that projectile spread, you know, it kind of gives you a little more of a chance to hit the further they are away, right? Because the projectiles will split. But the nice thing is, when they do split, they don't split a whole lot. Like, they stay relatively close together, I find. Which is a really nice feature to, you know, the projectiles splitting. Whereas with the Lyuda, for example, as a comparison, it tends to split on like almost like a 45, if you will. It splits on a 45 more than anything, where this one just kind of splits on a very slight angle. Not very much of one at all. But yeah. And I'll show you guys, as always, the Mayhem mode modifiers that I ended up getting by random chance. So as you can see, the enemies are a little tougher than norm, which is fine. But hey, if the gun can perform as good as it is on Mayhem mode 3, and they're, you know, the gun has less damage or whatever, and it's doing that good, you know, tells you how good it is. So hopefully you enjoyed. I will see you guys in the next one, and I hope you all have a great day out there.